You know, we have a man here that I don't know, but he's defending me all the time on CNN. And he defends me really well, but he can't go too far because if he goes too far, he'll get fired. I said, you're amazing. You can take it right to the edge. And he really does a good job. He's not allowed to go any further. He would be off, you know, if he really went totally crazy, which he'd like to do. But I think he's terrific. Scott Jennings. Where's Scott? Where are you, Scott? Come here, Scott. This guy, really, I've watched him for years. I don't know him, but he likes Trump. Come here, Scott. Oh, CNN, this is the end of Scott. Who cares? Don't worry, we'll take care of you, Scott. Scott Jennings, really great.
Thank you. Michigan. We were flying in here today, and I said, look at these farms. I got to get a farm in Michigan, because when you own as many libs as I do, you got to put a place to put them all. Thank you all very much.
Why can't you just acknowledge that what Donald Trump said this morning was abhorrent and that no president should ever threaten annihilating a civilization? Why can't you just acknowledge that?
Look, he's talking to them in the way he thinks he needs to talk to them.
Why can't you acknowledge that? That is something that no president of the United States should say.
Because I don't take orders from you, number one, and number two, I gave him the space to negotiate with the Iranians the best way he knows how.
All right, well, let me just ask a final question, Scott, for the record. Do you think it's acceptable for the president to threaten to annihilate a civilization?
I think it's acceptable for the commander-in-chief to deal with these people in the best way that he can.
Is that a yes or is it a no?
Result.
Is that a yes or is it a no?
So that's a yes.
Is that a yes or a no?
I'm not going to second guess him. I'm not going to second guess him.
So it's a yes.
He put out a statement. We now have a ceasefire.
Okay.
Those are the two things that
I just wanted to ask for the record.
Yes.
That's a yes on your part. Yeah. We'll leave it there.
The United States. You can't violate national sovereignty of a country.
Why?
Why?
We do it all the time.
I know, because America violates international law.
Who's going to stop us?
Decades, you would think morality ought to play some role.
You think it's immoral to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon?
I think that any condition.
Who's the moral actor here, Iran or the United States?
In terms of ensuring that we don't have nuclear bombs anywhere?
No, in terms of ensuing these butchers don't have nuclear bombs that they have fully said they will use on Israel.
Well, we got a larger discussion. We've got United States, Israel.
There's no equivocation.
What they've done in Gaza gives neither one of them moral authority. That's a genocide. It's ethnic cleansing. Israel has no moral authority. The United States has no moral authority.
Disagree.
You think that some... No, we just had deep disagreements on that. But I'd like to hear your Christian formulation.
So your alternative is to allow them to develop and deploy a nuclear weapon?
My brother?
Hold on a second.
Where does the love? Where's the love for you, for Iranians, and for Palestinians and others?
We don't live in a theocracy, but they do, and their theology
I don't defend theocracy.
Their theology is to get a nuclear weapon, destroy Israel, and destroy the great Satan, which is the United States. Our government is based on one thing, national defense. And what's in the best interest of our national defense is for these fanatics not to have a nuclear weapon where they can wipe us off the map. It has nothing to do with Christian or whatever. It has everything to do with national defense.
And you don't think there's fanatics?
Well, you know, I opened up my social media algorithm this morning, Maria, to find that the principal spokesperson for the Democratic Party, Hassan Piker, was leading a rally last night, a rally last night to celebrate the assassination of Charlie Kirk.
You know, that's
so I love the recitation of the talking points. All of the energy in your party is behind a bunch of violent socialists who have taken over the messaging operation of the Democratic Party. And look, midterms are historically good for the party out of power. I wonder if Democrats are squandering their opportunity because they've outsourced all of their energy and messaging to people who want to fundamentally rip out the United States of America root and branch.
That message reeks of desperation on behalf of Republicans.
Hey, pick it up, take a look at it. Are you defending
it? The midterm elections are just completely not going to be in their favor.
Defend it.
Because you look at the generic ballot,
she won't.
Democrats are ahead. You look at where Americans think which party is going to handle the economy better, Democrats are winning on that. And Scott, I appreciate that you're trying to smear every single Democrat with some of the craziness that you're talking about.
They're smearing themselves
by
keeping these violent thugs around.
It's just not true, and the American people aren't buying it.
They're smearing themselves, Maria, by keeping people like this around.
sucks for you guys because Trump has put you in a very difficult position because as my colleagues have said here, right, if Joe Biden or any other Democrat would have said this, you'd be like, that's ridiculous.
I don't know you very well, but I can assure you that the condition of Donald Trump being the president versus Joe Biden in no way, shape, or form sucks for me or Jim.
I think it's quite difficult to defend somebody who puts you in a position of saying we should put somebody else besides Americans first, especially when he's just given billions of dollars to bail out Argentina.
I think first of all, it was a currency swap, which we made a profit on. Number two, it's quite easy for me to be perfectly comfortable with the President of the United States, who's presiding over a broad coalition that does have disparate views. The previous administration, you couldn't sit here and tell me who the hell was in charge. I know who's in charge.
You're right,
of this
and I'm not going to defend it. I'm not sitting here to defend that. So I don't have Trump derangement syndrome. So all I'm saying is if you had somebody else saying the exact same thing, would you make the same argument? Can you say that honestly? And can you be intellectually honest about that?
Trump is in a difficult political position because his base is diversified here. Some hardliners, some moderates, and some people who want it more wide open. But they're all part of his coalition. He's trying to find a balance, but he's trying to do what's best for the United States. He clearly thinks there is some role for the H-1B program, but he has throttled it somewhat with this application fee.
What's up, family? So we got a lot to break down today, so I'm going to jump straight into it because this Scott Jennings compilation that's been going around has me fired up. And not because of what you think. We got Trump at a Michigan rally calling out Scott Jennings, as you've seen in the beginning of the clip, talking about how this man defends him on CNN and how he takes it right on the edge, but can't go too far because if he goes too far, they'll fire him. Think about that for a second. Here's a guy who walks into the lion's den every single day, and the president of the United States recognizes him from a rally stage. That tells you something about the impact he's having. That tells you something about the fact that when you stand on principle, you don't back down even when you're surrounded by people who despise everything you stand for and people notice. And I want to start right there because that's the foundation of everything we are about to talk about. Scott Jennings walking to CNN every single day, outnumbered, outgunned, and he still makes his case. And that's not easy to do. Most people fold when they're the only one in the room thinking differently. Most people start compromising just to keep the peace, and Scott Jennings doesn't do that. And the left absolutely cannot stand it. And now Trump brings him on stage and at the rally calls him out in front of everybody. And here's the thing. Trump says he doesn't even know Scott Jennings personally, but he's watched him for years. He knows what Scott does. He knows what Scott is out there fighting the fight on a network that would love nothing more than see him disappear. And Trump brings him up anyway. And that's the kind of loyalty you don't see in politics anymore. That's the kind of recognition that actually means something because it's not scripted, it's not staged, it's organic. And Scott Jennings comes up on the stage, gets the applause he deserves, and Trump's make a joke about, CNN, this is the end of Scott. Who cares? Don't worry, we'll take care of you. And you know what? That's real. Because at the end of the day, when you stand for something, when you refuse to bend the knee to the mob, the people who appreciate what you're doing will have your back. Now, after that rally, we jump straight into the CNN studio. And this is where it gets interesting because you got the panel trying to corner Scott on Trump's comments about Iran. They asked him, why can't you just acknowledge that what Trump said was a threat to annihilate a civilization? And watching how Scott handles this, because it's a masterclass level at its fullest, he doesn't take the bait. He doesn't get defensive. He says, I don't take orders from you, and I give the president space to negotiate with the Iranians the best way he knows how. And that's the key right there. The question itself is a trap. So they're trying to get him to condemn the president so they can run that clip everywhere. But Scott Jennings understands something that most people in media don't. He understands that negotiating with a regime that has openly called for the destruction of America and Israel is not the same thing as negotiating with Canada. You don't negotiate with people who want to wipe you off the map the same way you negotiate with a business partner. So when the panel keeps pressuring him, are you okay with threatening to annihilate a civilization? Scott holds his ground and says the commander-in-chief gets latitude to deal with these people the best way he can. And he's right. Because let's be real for a second. Iran has been at war with the United States for 47 years. Nobody talks about that. Nobody on CNN is going to bring up the fact that Iran has killed American soldiers, has maimed American troops, has attacked American allies, has funded terrorism across the globe for decades. No, they want to focus on the tone of how Trump says something instead of the substance of what needs to be done. And that's the media's game every single time. They focus on the delivery so you don't focus on the policy. They focus on the tweet so you don't focus on the result. And Trump put out a statement about Iran and what happened next: a ceasefire. Those are the two things Scott Jennings points out: statement, then ceasefire. And the panel cannot handle that because it doesn't fit their narrative that Trump is just a reckless madman. And if Trump was reckless and unhinged, why did the Iranians come to the table? Why did they agree to a ceasefire? Because they know he's serious. They know the previous administration gave them billions of dollars and got nothing in return. And they know this administration actually means what it says. Now, the conversation shifts and you get one of the most ridiculous exchanges I've seen in a minute. The panel starts talking about national sovereignty, how you can't violate the national sovereignty of a country. And Scott's response is perfect because he says, we do it all the time. And he's right. America has a long history of intervening or coming in between when it's in our national interest. We did it in the Balkans, we did it in Iraq, we did it in Afghanistan. We do it when we have to because that's what great powers do. But now all of a sudden, when it comes to preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, we're supposed to worry about their sovereign rights. You give me a break on that one. Their sovereignty doesn't mean they get to develop weapons that can kill millions of people. And their sovereignty doesn't mean they get to follow through on their stated goal of destroying Israel. And the panel member actually has the audacity to say that America and Israel have no moral authority because of what happened in Gaza, calling it genocide, calling it ethnic cleansing. And I got to stop right there, family, because this is where the conversation goes completely off the rails, as you've seen in this clip or compilations of clips. Because you got people sitting in a comfortable CNN studio in New York or wherever throwing around words like genocide and ethnic cleansing to describe a military campaign against Hamas, a terrorist organization that started this whole thing on October 7th, a terrorist organization that still holds hostages, a terrorist organization that uses its own people as human shields. And the left wants to talk about who has moral authority. And Scott's response is exactly right. Their theology is to get to a nuclear weapon, destroy Israel, and destroy the United States. Our government is based on national defense. That's the difference. One side wants to wipe us off the map. The other side wants to prevent that from happening. And if you can't see the moral distinction there, you're not paying attention or you're choosing not to, right? And then the panel tries to go after Scott on domestic politics. And this is where things get really wild. The Democratic Party's principal spokesperson, Hassan Piker, we already know that he's a political commentary, highly known and became popular from his political commentary for the far, far left on Twitch, the platform of Twitch, but being a streamer. But Hassan Piker was leading a rally celebrating the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Let me say that again. The principal spokesperson, Hassan Piker, for the Democratic Party was celebrating the idea of Charlie Kirk being assassinated. And Scott brings this up, and you can see the panel squirm because they know they can't defend it. They know they can't say that's okay. So what do? They try to change the subject, even though we know for that reason, as you've seen with Hassan Piker being the spokesperson, the left is the reason why political violence is at an all-time high. So that's why they can't say that's okay. So they change the subject and they try to say Scott is smearing every Democrat with the craziness of a few. But that's not what happened. Scott said the party is keeping these people around. And that's why it substantiates my point, family, in saying that the far left has made political violence at an all-time high, in which it is currently to this day and age and this time of politics than ever before in history of political violence. And he said they outsourced their messaging to violent socialists. And that's the truth. And not to mention that these Antifa, terrorist groups and these groups that form in the name of chaos, having, signs and picket signs ready to go automatically out of nowhere when something pops off, like impeding an investigation when it comes to ICE for illegals not being in the country in the first place. So individuals stir up being agents of chaos, impeding into the investigation, which puts everybody at danger when it's already a risk because we have someone in the country illegally who may be a potential danger to others. So you have them blowing whistles to basically notify each other that ICE is in the area. You have individuals standing in front of ICE vehicles, not letting them go by. And then next thing you know, soon something happens due to them being agents of chaos. Or, and unfortunately, let's say, for example, a life is lost, like what we see in Minnesota, as in a mother having her life being lost and not complying with ICE orders and constantly being a hackler and being an agent of chaos and stalking and chasing and following ICE all around, impeding into their investigations to find an illegal immigrant or individuals who came in this country illegal. You realize soon something unfortunate happens from the agent of chaos individual who put themselves in it. All of a sudden, signs start coming out of nowhere, heavily coordinated, like right away. And come to find out, as we see with our Attorney General, Todd Blanche, being a part of the Trump administration, our president's current administration, and Marco Rubio actually announced that the funding of these coordinated groups that pay individuals to be agents of chaos and work against ICE and heighten up this political violence I'm talking about happen to be from Italy, right? So as it reads, Marco Rubio just found out that anti-ICE Antifa riots and violence are being supported by international terror groups that are well-funded, one of which is located in Italy. So there you have it, family. There you have it. So when Scott Jennings says they outsource their messaging to violent socialists, that's just damn shades the point, right? Let me know what you think in the comments. But it's the truth. And the Democratic Party has made a choice not to distance themselves from the radical elements in their coalition. And they let the squad run the show, and they let people who celebrate violence against the conservatives be the face of their party. And then they act surprised when people don't trust them. And you can't have it both ways. You can't say you're the party of unity and inclusion while your most vocal supporters are cheering for the death of your political opponents. That's not unity. That's a hostile takeover. Now, they pivot to the midterm elections, and the panel starts talking about how the generic ballot and how Democrats are ahead and how the economy numbers supposedly favor Democrats. And this is where I need to say something important. Polls in August of an election year are basically worth the paper they're printed on. People aren't paying attention yet. They're on vacation, they worry about their families and their jobs, and more importantly, the energy is not on the Democrat side. The energy is with the people who showed up at the Michigan rally. The energy is with people who are tired of being told that common sense is hateful. And the energy is with the parents who are sick of their kids being indoctrinated in schools, as they would say. Most Americans feel as though their kids are being indoctrinated in school, I should say. And Scott Jennings makes this point indirectly, but it's worth calling out. The Democratic Party has outsourced all their energy and messaging to people who want to fundamentally rip out the United States of America root and branch. And regular Americans see that, and they see the riots, they see the calls to defund the police, they see the open borders, they see the chaos, and they're not buying what the Democrats are selling no matter what the generic ballot says in August.
And honestly, they have been at war with us for 47 years.
We all know that Scott Jennings is more than happy to defend a war with a country that starts with the letters IRA that we are currently failing, that is going to put us trillions and trillions of dollars more in debt. I was only a few years old while you were in the administration defending prior endless wars. Now this war is failing.
8 weeks is endless to you?
Okay, you said it was going to be 4 to 6 weeks.
You have the attention span of a gnat?
Homie, I debated you on TV 4 to 6 weeks ago, and you said we were weeks away from it. Now you're making condescending remarks because you can't defend the fact that this war is not going your way. Wait, one more time.
Not going your way.
One political concession. Name one political concession.
Whoa, guys,
Honestly, I'm not going to have this guy's in my face.
Everybody, hang tight,
Honestly.
okay? No, everybody calm down, okay? We're having a debate. You can respond to the points that he's making.
Can you name a political concession that we've got?
We had a flashback to the war the skinheads had in my studio.
I would be mad if I had to defend wars. I would be mad if I had to defend wars.
Scott, you can respond.
We have a very simple goal: to keep terrorists and a terrorist regime from having a nuclear weapon that can threaten the United States, our interests in the region, our allies in Europe, anybody else.
So you can't answer the question.
That is
I would get mad too.
All right, we're going to leave it there, guys. Next for us.
For us to normalize this is really out of hand. And as a man of a dad, as somebody talked about Christ, I can't believe that you think that this is okay.
You want me to tell you that politics ain't beanbag, Jamal?
No, I want you to tell me that Donald Trump is not a great role model for America's children, and we should be looking for somewhere else to look for that.
Look, he participates in our political culture in a very, very strong way. And when people come out against him, he comes out against them. And you work for Kamala Harris, and I've never heard her say a kind word about Donald Trump or any Republican much. So politics is a rough and tumble business. That I will admit.
I mean, from the South. I mean, I think
do I expect Donald Trump to teach my children anything and everything? No, I'll take care of that. He can take care of the politics. I'll take care of my kids. If you need politicians to tell your kids right from wrong, that's your business.
I think generally, let me go ahead and just play it because there's just such a long history of this. Trump punching down, insulting women. Let's just play it.
Scott, never complaining about it.
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
But what we want to do is to replenish the Social Security Trust Fund.
You are the worst reporter. No wonder CNN has no ratings because of people like you. You know, she's a young woman. I don't think I've ever seen you smile. I've known you for 10 years. I don't think I've ever seen a smile on your face.
Well, I'm asking you about survivors of Jeffrey Epstein.
Is there something incriminating in the file,
Quiet, Piggy. I mean, Scott, Dan's question was pretty straightforward. If you're going to be outraged over traveling on a plane with Natalie, are you going to be outraged over all those things?
I do not believe in demeaning women in any way, number one. Number two.
So did the president demean women, and was that unacceptable?
The issue I have with this
Are you outraged or not about that?
The issue I have with this is
not answering the question.
Natalie Harp
not answering the question.
Is not a public figure.
Nor is
she has
nor is Ruby Freeman or Shane Moss.
She has no ability
to be honest.
You are not answering the question. You are avoiding the question again, Scott Jennings. You continuously distract and avoid.
By the way, at home, you have no idea how loud this is.
But Scott, listen.
You have no idea how dishonest you are.
It has nothing to do with Natalie. She is being a defenseless woman. First of all, just to be clear, hold on a second.
What do you think, Lydia?
Hold on a second.
You're a Republican or conservative woman.
Just to be clear.
What do you think? You were asked a question.
Hold on a second, Keith.
And or Senate put some guardrails on Trump?
I doubt it because, you know, he has huge authority as commander-in-chief. He doesn't listen to Congress. I'm not sure that there's much that can. The only authority he recognizes, as we were discussing earlier, is the market. So he doesn't want to do something that tanks the market.
Guardrails for what? To go back to a world where we're all rainbows and unicorns with the Iranians? They've been at war with us for 47 years.
Rainbows and unicorns.
47 years? Okay.
Nobody has been rainbows and unicorns with the Iranians.
Why didn't I learn about the 40? I'm sorry. The first time I've ever heard about the 47-year Iran war was like this year. Like, we don't teach about the 47-year war with Iran in school. Like, it's insulting to actual conflicts that we've been involved in.
That you have no idea what the Iranians
that we've
have
been
done
at war with Iran.
for 47
How many Americans
years.
have they killed on U.S. soil in 47 years in the war that we
They have killed thousands of Americans. They have maimed American soldiers. They have attacked American allies, and they have been at war with the West ever since this regime came to power. And it is their intention to build a nuclear weapon and use it on us and use it on Israel and use it on the West. That is their intention, and they state it every day.
No, they intend to just keep using the Strait of Hormuz. They have now learned that they can behave like a nuclear power without ever needing to be one. But, okay, so, like, if we're going to keep going with this, what number of American troops are we willing to commit to keep going? And, like, what's your number? Like, how many U.S. troops are you willing to expend to achieve your objectives? And what amount of money? Because, like, we're not having that conversation. And we need to, because we've already spent $300 billion. We've already lost. Like, those are the questions we need to answer.
To keep the American people safe from the worst regime in the world? A fair.
Then the conversation shifts again, and you get this amazing exchange where a panelist tries to say Trump has put conservatives in a difficult position because if Joe Biden had said the same things, you would criticize him. And Scott's response is perfect. He says, the condition of Trump being president versus Joe Biden in no way, shape, or form sucks for me. And that's the thing, family. Conservatives are not struggling right now. We're not in a difficult position. We have a president who actually shows up, who actually fights, who actually does what he said he was going to do. And the panelist wants to pretend that this is some kind of moral dilemma, but it's not, because the previous administration, you couldn't even tell who was in charge. You had a president who was clearly struggling cognitively. You had shadow figures running the government. You had policies being made by people who were never elected. And Scott says, and I know who's in charge now, and that's the difference. Say what you want about Trump, but nobody's confused about who's running the show. There's no question about whether the person in charge actually knows what day it is. Now they went into the H-1B visa debate. And this is where the coalition conversation gets interesting because Trump has a broad coalition with diverse views on immigration, and the panelist tries to use that as a gotcha. But here's the thing. A broad coalition with diverse views is a sign of a healthy movement, not a weakness. Trump is clearly listening to different perspectives, and he's trying to find a balance on the H-1B program. He's throttled it with application fees. He's not getting rid of it entirely. He's trying to calibrate. That's what leaders do. They take input from different parts of their coalition and they make the best decision for the country. The alternative is what we had before, which was nobody in charge and a wide open border where anyone could come in and take American jobs for cheaper labor. And this brings us to the heart of the video and a point that really needs to be hammered home, family. When you look at it, reacting to these points and making these points, I want you to sit with this for a minute because it's important. There are a lot of things that conservatives are pushing for today that would have been considered completely normal in America decades ago. Respect for the military, respect for law and order, strong families, patriotism, secure borders, religious freedom, academic standards, merit. These are not radical ideas. These are not new ideas. These are old ideas. We have lived this before. These are ideas that were taught to generations of Americans, but somewhere along the way, some of these basic ideas started being treated as though they were dangerous. And that's the real story here, family. That's the thing nobody wants to talk about. How did we get to a point where expecting students to work hard and meet academic standards is controversial? How do we get to a point where parents asking what their children are being taught is a political problem? How do we get to a point where telling your children that biological sex matters is hateful? Now, these are all questions. I'm not telling you what to think or how to think. Let me know in the comments if you get where I'm going here and hammering this home to the whole concept of why we looked at those compilations of Scott Jennings and the CNN panel. But that didn't happen by accident. That happened because the educational system and the media have been working together slowly to shift the Overton window so far to the left that basic common sense now looks extreme. Now we get back to the Iran debate, and the panelists hit Scott with that classic deflection. Scott Jennings is happy to defend a war with a country that starts with IRA. That's going to put us trillions of dollars more in debt. And Scott's response is perfect. He says, 8 weeks is endless to you. You said it was going to be 4 to 6 weeks, and now you're moving the goalposts. And this is the problem with the anti-war crowd on the left. They have the attention span of a gnat. They don't understand that serious military operations take time. They don't understand that you can't defend the ideology in 8 weeks. And they don't understand that this isn't like ordering something on Amazon. And when you put out their timeline was wrong, they get condescending instead of admitting they were wrong. And Scott calls them out on it and says, you have the attention span of a gnat. And honestly, that's being generous because these are the same people who had supported endless wars in Afghanistan and Iraq under Democratic presidents. But now that Trump is handling Iran, suddenly they're concerned about the cost and the duration. It's almost like their position depends entirely on which party is in charge, which it is. And here's the part that really gets me. The panelists asked, what's the number of American troops you're willing to commit? And what's the dollar amount? And Scott gives them the honest answer, a fair amount. To keep safe from the worst regime in the world, a fair amount. And that's the truth. When you're dealing with a regime that has openly stated their intention to destroy you and your allies, you don't nickel and dime national security. You don't put a cap on how much you're willing to spend to prevent a nuclear armed Iran. And the panelist wants to act like this is some open-ended blank check, but the reality is the alternative is much more expensive. A nuclear Iran would trigger a nuclear arms race in the Middle East that would make everything we spent so far look like pocket change. And it would threaten Israel, it would threaten Europe, and it would threaten American interests everywhere. So yes, spending a fair amount to prevent that is actually the physical or physically responsible position when it comes to the yearly cost in which it would cost our country astronomically. Now, when you point to the personal attacks, and this is where the media's hypocrisy really shines, they bring up Trump's past comments about women. They play the clips. They try to get Scott to condemn Trump that you've seen in this clip. And Scott handles it right away. He says he doesn't believe in demeaning women in any way, but he's not going to get baited into condemning the president over things that have already been litigated a million times. More importantly, he makes the point that the media only cares about this stuff when it's a Republican. They didn't care when Biden was putting his hands all over women. They didn't care when Clinton was in the Oval Office with an intern. They didn't care when Kennedy had women all over the place. It's only Trump election after election after election. And what's even more telling is the panelist brings up Natalie Harp, who is a staffer and tries to make it about defending her. But as Scott points out, Natalie Harp is a public figure who works for the president. She's not some private citizen who can't defend herself. And the way the panelist keeps trying to corner Scott on this instead of talking about actual policy issues tells you everything you need to know about the media's or the mainstream liberal media priorities. Now we get to the education segment, right? And this is where the real meat of the conversation is. When you look at it, right, reacting to all of this and seeing these clips, I'm going to lay it out this way, and I think it's really important to understand. Patriotism has become something people are embarrassed to express. Waving a flag in your own home is offensive to some people now. Hanging a flag outside your house is controversial. Telling your children that biological sex matters is hateful. Expecting students to actually work hard and meet those standards has become problematic, right? And I've said it because I wanted really to hammer that in to get you to understand how the mainstream liberal media has demonized the things in which is the fabric and what our country has been thriving off of. Instead of the parents asking questions of what their child is being taught and it turning into a political problem, now schools think they know your child better than you. So questioning progressive ideas in university classrooms can even get you in trouble. And these are the questions that nobody on the left wants to answer because they know the answers would expose what's really happening. So you got kids, right, education wise, spending 12 years in school, then 4 more years in college. And the question is whether they're being taught to think independently, which critical thinking used to be heavily advocated and promoted in schools, or rather they're being introduced to one dominant worldview over and over again until they accept it as a truth. Some would say, as Americans are saying, the seeing the sentiment, the overall sentiment, most Americans believe that universities that used to be places where all ideas were debated and challenged and argued, they're now places where students are afraid to ask questions because they might get called a bad person. Let me know what you think about that in the comments. They might get labeled. They might get canceled. And they'll say that's not education, and it happens to be that that's not education, right? It's more so indoctrinating in regards of whatever I say and repeat long enough, you must say the same thing. Do what I say as I say what I say as I say it, walk the talk as I walk it, and talk the talk as I talk it. And the difference matters because education teaches you how to think. Indoctrination teaches you what to think. One produces free, independent adults. The other produces obedient followers who can't defend their own beliefs because they were never taught to question them. And this is where the connection, as most Americans are saying, and I'm just giving you the overall sentiment, and we're having a productive conversation. The connection between education and political identity becomes so important because research has shown that Democrats have an advantage among young voters with bachelor's degrees, while Republicans have an advantage among voters without degrees. That doesn't necessarily prove that schools are turning kids into Democrats, okay? But what it does prove is that education and political identity have become deeply connected. And I'll leave it there on my end. But if you spend 12 to 16 years in a system that pushes one worldview while punishing any dissent or opinion besides the one that is constantly being pushed on you or you're told to accept as truth, it shouldn't surprise anyone that young people come out of that system thinking a certain way. I mean, for example, most would say that's why the work that Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA are doing is important. They're going into schools and reaching young people with a different message. They're showing kids that you don't have to be ashamed of being conservative or just thinking different or agreeing to disagree. You don't have to hide. You don't have to apologize. And that's powerful because who else is reaching these kids? The teacher unions are certainly not, most would say. The professors are certainly not, most Americans would say. The mainstream liberal media is certainly not. So if conservatives don't show up, or you can be liberal or conservative, just advocating in regards of just having a difference of opinion, but still standing in unity, and it's not about labels and parties, then we'll be in a better place, and we should continue to be in that healthy space to have those conversations. So if conservatives, it comes off, don't show up and make the case, the other side wins by default, right? The one that pushes only what they want you to know and want you to repeat in the name of talking points, and you have to just accept that as the truth. So if we believe our ideas are strong and correct, then we should be able to defend them. We don't need to censor people. We don't need to silence anyone. We don't even need to call people names. We just need to make the case. And that's where progressive worldview gets it wrong. They don't believe their ideas can win in a fair debate, so they have to rig the system. They have to silence difference of opinions. They have to label opposing views as hate speech. They have to use the power of institutions to enforce compliance instead of winning through persuasion. And that's not confidence in your ideas. That's fear. And usually fear translates into you trying to control things so you feel like you have a grip on something to somewhat give you that sense of consciousness that you battle with, or confidence that you battle with. Because you really don't have confidence in what you're saying or your ideas that it will fully come into fruition. So you have to control things to make sure that it comes out to be that outcome to validate your confidence, which is really insecure. And when you're afraid your ideas can't stand on their own, you resort to censorship, cancel culture, and shutting down debate. And that go for anyone. You ever had a situation where you're in a relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend, anyone like that, and you are speaking the truth, right? But you don't believe that you don't believe confidently that your truth would actually make y'all better, right? So basically, since you don't believe that your truth will make y'all better, but you know the reality of the situation, you would rather sit there and then from a controlling aspect, make sure that you push your feelings onto that individual that you care for to have a sense of control because you don't even believe in the truth of you being able to thrive in that relationship. So what I'm basically trying to say in short terms is how many times you have come across in your own life or seen through other individuals where individuals would rather emotionally manipulate and put their feelings onto others to feel those they have a grip in the name of control to actually see or feel confidence in a form of validation in a relationship to see if the relationship could be as best as it could be instead of just being truthful and honest and not pushing your feelings onto the other and making it one-sided where you are saying how you feel and emotionally manipulating them in many ways and tactics, which can be toxic, to make them just say what you want them to say and they don't have a difference of opinion. So you're basically canceling out their opinion or their thoughts or their difference of difference of thinking to only put your feelings there to make them continue to serve your feelings in the name of sympathy or empathy and constantly just speak to how you feel in an emotional manipulative way where they only care about and think about and only care enough to satisfy your emotions, because once your emotions are satisfied, everything just becomes destroyed because you don't really have confidence in the truth of the relationship thriving and you just being honest and where you're at in the state of mind and letting the other person know where you're coming from and you guys are choosing each other, which is a healthier way. So you would rather cancel them out and just continue to push on your view of the relationship by manipulating it to validate yourself or serve yourself to validate your fears, if that makes sense. So conservatives don't need to do that because their ideas actually make sense to regular Americans. Regular Americans understand that borders matter. Regular Americans understand that biological sex matters. Hard work should be rewarded, not participation points, actual hard work. Because hard work doesn't have a timeline when you may like when the results come in. You just have to continue to be consistent and win the day every single day, showing up whether you feel like it or not, but putting in the work and being committed to something. And over time, you will reap the results. Not participation points in regards of, oh, you tried and everything is based on feelings. And as soon as you don't feel like it, you do just enough or just a little bit to validate your emotions to make it as though you felt like you have done something, but you didn't do enough, and which the work required to continue to improve and go in the right direction to yield results. You're moving based on emotions, and once your emotions doesn't seem to be up to the satisfaction of how you want it, you feel as though you still should be awarded for you participating in the idea of doing it when you feel like it. But regular Americans understand that you get awarded through hard work. So we don't need to force anyone to agree with this. We just need to be allowed to make the case. So the core takeaway, what Scott Jennings represent is more important not because he's perfect or because you agree with everything he says. It's important because he walks into rooms where he's outnumbered and he makes his case anyway. He doesn't cower. He doesn't apologize. He doesn't try to blend in. He shows up prepared. He knows the facts. He understands the opposing argument. And he makes his case with confidence. That's what conservatives need to learn. And that's what we all need to learn. You don't have to be afraid of the other side. You don't have to hide your beliefs. You don't have to pretend to be something you're not just to keep the peace. You don't have to be emotionally manipulative to sway things to your liking, to really put on a facade in the name of weaponization by being emotionally manipulative to make sure individuals are saying the things that you want them to say to feel validated instead of just being truthful and honest and standing on your beliefs and not hiding them. And, the truth will show for itself in whatever situation and what adjustments you need to make. Because as humans, we have the beauty to adjust and adapt. So you just learn the facts, you know the history, you understand what the other side actually believes, and then you make your case with confidence, and that's how you win arguments, and that's how you win elections, and that's how you change minds. So the most important lesson of this is the media, the educational system, cultural institutions. Americans feel they've been working for decades to make regular Americans feel ashamed of their own country, telling you that America is fundamentally flawed, that our founding was evil, that our history is nothing but oppression, that patriotism is naive, that borders are cruel, that merit is a myth, that hard work doesn't matter, that your identity is based on your skin color, not your character. And that been doing this. And they've been doing this not because they believe it, but because it gives them power. If they can make you hate your own country to, your own country, you'll look to them for salvation. And if they can make you doubt your own judgment, you'll trust their expertise instead. If they can make you ashamed of your own values, you accept whatever new values they want to give you. So that's what I see with this whole thing. I believe America has made mistakes. Every country has, but I also believe America is worth defending. I believe the principles this country was founded on are still the best hope for human freedom in the world. And I believe that giving people opportunity and letting their performance determine the outcome is the most fair and just system ever created. I believe that hard work should matter. I believe competence should matter. I believe that character should matter. I believe that your choices have consequences, and that's not cruelty, it's reality. And that's the message I want to leave with you today, family. Your choices matter, your decisions matter, your character matters. Not the skin, not the color of your skin, your character. Your discipline matters, your behavior matters. Nobody's coming to save you. The system is not going to hand you success on a silver platter. But if you learn, if you grow, if you work hard, if you build skills, you develop competence, you can just succeed, right? That's true empowerment. Not being told that you're a victim of systems you can't control. Not being told that your fate is determined by forces beyond your reach. But being told that you have agency, that you can learn, you can grow, you can improve, you can build something, you can become better. And that's the message that all of us, young, old, middle age, we all have something. We always can learn from something and continue to learn and be open minded that understand that everything can be a learning opportunity. And that's what needs to be heard. And for the next generation as well, for the younger people. And that's the message the current educational system, most will say they refuse to give. And before I close, I want to hit one last point because it's the thread that ties everything together. When you look at the Scott Jennings compilation, you see a pattern. The media can't attack his arguments, so they try to attack him personally. They cannot win on the merits. They try to shut down. So on the debate, right? So they try to shut him down and give personal ad hominem attacks and attack him, period. And that's exactly what's happening. And they can't defend what they're teaching, so they try to prevent in some education systems, right? Because you got good schools and bad schools. But in certain institutions, when it comes to education, if they can't defend what they're teaching, they try to prevent parents from seeing the curriculum. There's no difference when you see in this panel, if they can't win on the merits, they try to shut down the debate with Scott Jennings, right? So they can't defend their policies, so they try to label anyone who questions them as a bigot. And the common thread is that if your ideas can't survive scrutiny, you have to eliminate the scrutiny, right? That's the common thing, unfortunately, when you really should be eliminating the ideas, not the scrutiny, because that's where truth lies. And I'll leave you with this Bible scripture, 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15. And I quote, "But in your hearts honor Christ, the Lord as holy. Always be prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you, yet do it with gentleness and respect." End quote. So the verse fits the video like a glove. Scott Jennings walked into a room when he asked him to defend positions he holds, and he was prepared. He didn't get angry. He didn't get flustered. He made his case with facts ready, with his reasoning lined up, and with a calmness that disarmed the people trying to trap him. And that's what being prepared looks like. That's what Peter was talking about in the Bible verse. Not arguing for the sake of arguing, not trying to humiliate the other side, but being ready with truth, ready with facts, ready with a reason for what you believe, and then deliver it in a way that doesn't shut the door but leaves it open. And here's a life wisdom for my non-spiritual family, for those who may not lean into scripture. Preparation removes fear. The reason most people fold under pressure is not because they're weak, it's because they didn't do the work beforehand. And Scott Jennings didn't show up unprepared. He knew the arguments, he knew the counter arguments, he knew the facts, and because he did the work beforehand, he could stand calm in the middle of a storm. And that's a lesson for every area of life, whether it's a conversation about politics, a meeting at work, a difficult family discussion, or a personal goal you're chasing. The confidence doesn't come from wishing things go well. It comes from knowing you prepared enough that you can handle whatever comes. So my question for you in the comments, let me know, do you think the way we are raising and educating young people today is teaching them how to think or teaching them what to think? Want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.